I'm gonna make yet another video. Here's a video on piracy. Um, People ask me a lot of times what I think about piracy, whether it relates to movies or music or code, um, and operating systems and that kind of thing. And of course, my opinions have changed radically over the years. I mean, I was raised during the Napster era. I was there for that. Um, and there's a lot of people that are going to make comments down. I don't necessarily agree with all the comments. Please, you're welcome to make comments on my stream right now on Twitch while I'm doing this live because somebody asked a question. And somebody said that, where they live, that piracy is totally okay. And I get it. So my position is pretty nuanced, we'll say. My position is nuanced. I think that it depends. Bottom line, it depends. Do I think it's okay for you to buy a knockoff, handbag in America that has, that looks like it came from some other? I don't really care. Um, my morality when you start talking about morality here, you really have to ask yourself, well, what's going on? So let me give you a very specific example. So VMware, okay. Um, Everybody knows I recommend VMware during the beginner boost. I think it's a great tool. I think people should use it. Um, I think it's by far the best virtual machine engine out there. And people are like, well, I can't get it here because it's, you have to, I can only have this single. You actually can get it for free, just a single seat. I'm not recommending that you steal VMware, steal. But the term steal is really nuanced because it depends on where you are. So there are people who live in the world in places where paying the cost of VMware would be, the cost of a month's salary or 2 months' salary. And like, what I'm saying is that I live in a country and I have a job where, the prices for VMware, I'm using VMware specifically as an example, have been set for where I live. And therefore, I feel like for myself, I'm speaking about myself, and I got no problem, paying for VMware Workstation Pro. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the greatest pieces of software ever made. There's been a lot of turbulence over at VMware lately with the, buying out and everything, and I'm going to talk about that today. The point is that I have the money. I'm living in an economy, and I have a job in the economy for which VMware was priced. Now, if I were in, and I'm going to use a very specific example from somebody who sent me a 2-page thank you email from the Philippines, and they were, going off on my entire life has changed. I can now provide for my family. I couldn't really do that before. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to that person, I'm imagining them in my mind, that specific person, if I were to tell that person in a one-on-one mentoring relationship, you need to pay $100 or whatever it is for VMware Workstation Pro for you to be able to, learn the tech skills for Linux that you need to do to be able to get a job. That would be, I mean, that sounds, borderlines on mean to say something like that. So, would I recommend that the person from the Philippines steal VMware because they live in the Philippines? I don't know if I would recommend it, but I definitely would judge it much less. Broadcom's gutting VMware. I know. So, yeah, and the free player for the boost, as someone said, is plenty good enough. And again, I have nothing but good things to say about VMware. I've been using it my entire life. VMware saved me from having to buy an extra GPU because KVM requires it be dedicated per GPU unless you do some really wild hacking on it. And I know that because I tried to get Zwift to run on Linux and it wouldn't do it under KVM because I had to have a separate GPU. And I'm like, I'm not buying 2 GPUs. VMware is set up to share GPU across multiple. I mean, all of these things are completely irrelevant, but I know we're kind of getting pulled down the VMware hole here. I'm using that particular piece of software as an example. Another example that I would use would be books, educational books, and this is a place that there's much wider disagreement with what is okay. So, you know, um, a book that costs $50 in the U.S. Uh, could be free online, and it's very easy to pirate that stuff. And so you download it and you use it for free. And there, I personally feel like um, there's very little reason for even people across the board to usually steal copyrighted material in book form. Do I think that more knowledge should be open? Yes, I do. I definitely think that. I also think that people who write and create that knowledge should be able to feed their families and eat dinner. So I, you know, in the United States, I've paid for everything. I've bought several dozen copies of several books that have turned out to be absolute trash, and then I had to throw them all out. Probably the reason I'm still in debt for all the stuff that I paid to start my own educational endeavor. It was very successful, but I still have the debt from it. Anyway, the point is that if you are dealing with materials, usually you can find a better book or something that's free online, or you can just make your own material through experimentation and project-based learning, as opposed to having to buy a book. I think one of the greatest sins against humanity is what the formal education system does in their tyrannical control of textbooks. And I'm talking about the $170, and that is not an exaggeration, price tag on a book that you have to buy. You're mandated. I like that word better. You're mandated to buy. I'm not going to point fingers at a specific book, but there are so many books that colleges know you have to buy. And the reason these books are so horrible is because they cater to the decision makers, not the people who have to use the book. They cater to the decision makers who are picking that book based on notoriety and a number of other things besides digestibility. And they are forcing thousands of people to buy and use a crappy book that has not been written with the needs of the person reading it as a priority. And if I sound a little spun up and triggered about this is because I am. I have, spent a good portion of my last, 2 decades of my life trying to fight against this. The hubris and just the unfettered greed in the academic world is killing modern education. And they don't care. They don't care. A late stage capitalism, and they are there to make money, and they got no problem. They know, they go, oh yeah, just sell book back, right? So they take, you buy a book, you use maybe 60% of the book during a semester that you can't even read because it wasn't written for you. It was written for some other brainiac academic who is going to say, yes, this is appropriate. And this, oh, God forbid you buy a $30 dummies book and learn the same thing. So it's this like inner bro culture that says, oh, you have to do this. And then like, oh, we're so poor. We're academics. We don't make any money. This is the only way we make money is through our books. You know what? That's not the problem of the people that you're exacting your revenge on by forcing these poor children. Yeah. I called you children. To go into serious, massive debt. Oh, yeah, that's just how the system is. I didn't make the system. I hate it. I hate it. It makes me angry. That's why this podcast, this particular segment is going to go under Don't Get Mad, Get Busy. So I tell you what. In fact, I'm going to share one story that's actually kind of happy. There was a professor that I talked to about this, and in their materials, they put in their syllabus materials, that have to get approved by the board and everything. They put in their materials that it might be possible to acquire the book in other ways. Yeah. So this is a professor. It's so interesting because a lot of times the professors, at least the ones that are not buying into the I'm going to get rich off this book thing, they and even some that do, even some that actually have the authorship of a textbook, they're like, you know what? We hate that you have to pay this exorbitant amount on this. This is not a thing. And so even sometimes the author of the book will be like, you can get this book other ways, but I can't tell you what those other ways are. But you can get this book other ways because they don't believe in the system, and it's like civil disobedience to pirate the book that they wrote. Anyway, so we're off the VMware thing. Let's that was just an example. So the point is, I am not going to judge you and for stealing a book based on your circumstances. I'm not encouraging you to steal the book. And recently, I did another video on what if everybody did it? What can I get away with? And the contrast of those ways of thinking. And I think if you ask yourself, what if everybody did it? What if everybody put an ad blocker on? What would happen? The whole industry would change, right? What if everybody stole music off Napster? The whole industry would change, right? And they'd start streaming services, and then the people that create great music would never make any money. That's what happened. What if everybody did it? What if everybody? So, in my case, if every single person from the Philippines, I don't know why I'm using that example again. If every single one of those people from the Philippines stole a pirated copy of a $170 textbook, the world would still be fine. The world would be fine, and the Philippines might, in general, the population of the Philippines might become more tech savvy, and they actually are. I mean, this has nothing to do with the culture of the Philippines. That just is one specific example. But you could be that you're from Russia or Serbia or Brussels or some Asian country. It's not up to me to tell you whether it's okay to pirate a book or a game. But you need to be careful. I mean, the thing I should probably close out with here is please be very, very careful. Even in a PDF, if it's a free PDF and it has a reader, please make sure that you don't do that. You're not that dumb, right? I know you're not. You're not dumb enough to not know that downloading a program that has to run in order to read a PDF or watch a movie, those things can be downloaded without a player or a viewer. I'm gonna hope that everybody watching this video is smart enough to know that that's stupid, because anything that runs on your computer, particularly off of some free site, is going to compromise you. And unless you want to contribute to the botnet community and you want to help out the hackers in the world out there. The publishers lie to you about the first sale doctrine. Yeah, they do. They really do. So that's my position on it. I still think that people that produce value should be paid. They should be compensated for it. My position on open source has changed rather dramatically, and I will cite the life of Eric S. Raymond as a point of evidence number one. Open source, in the sense of I'm going to give everything that I ever make away for free, is wrong. It's broken, and it leaves a bunch of people with nothing. So I'm not suggesting that everyone should give everything away for free, as many have. What I'm suggesting is that we should take into account those people and their situation when we make these decisions, and that you need to do that for yourself. And by the way, this goes for Twitch. One of the things that I like the most about Twitch, and this is the main reason that I do not stream to YouTube anymore, there are many things that are wrong with Twitch, but there are many things that are right about Twitch. And one of the things I really love about Twitch is Twitch facilitates DJs and people who are mixing music and all of that kind of thing. And they are not stealing that music. Most of the time they own it. They're paying for the music and they're sharing it in different ways than they're mixing it. And Twitch is like, as long as there's no VOD around, then it's fine. So Twitch has taken a firm position supporting the content creators. That also doesn't violate too much, stealing money from, the people that are making the money, which, by the way, is not the musician. It's always the company that the musicians, sold out to in order to get their music out there. And that whole dynamic has totally changed a lot. There's a lot of people that are going more direct now, thank God. But I really like that about Twitch. Twitch has always, people love to slam on Twitch, but when you compare Twitch to everybody else, Twitch has objectively done the most to allow people to make their own decisions about these kinds of things. And then you got Aaron Schwartz's, So, your software freedoms. Yes. I mean, we could talk. This is a very long-winded discussion, so I could keep going forever and ever. I'm going to stop now. Um, so yeah, make your own decisions when it comes to piracy. I am going to link to this video at the beginning of the beginner boost because some of the things I'm going to recommend, for example, Head First C, when we do C coding, uh, that is a book from a publisher that is really good. And if you live in America, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and drop the money on it, even though it's full of errata and it's got problems and everything. I still think it's worth paying for. I still think it's worth you know I don't think it's okay to just take from content providers of all kinds and not do anything to show your gratitude ever, that they like owe you something. And I again, I'm not pointing fingers here, but I think it's really important that you learn to appreciate the time and energy. Just it's the mindset, right? It's the mindset of like I versus what if everybody did. It's like, am I owed anything? Oh, all of these content providers owe me this content. They owe me this education. I am owed this kind of thing. That kind of thinking is on the one side is really wrong thinking in my opinion. And then on the other side, you have I'm going to squeeze every dime out of them and I'm going to gatekeep every single thing and blah blah blah. You got kind of the kind of rampant greed, and I think that ethically the middle ground in there is the place to be. It's like I want to support the creation of content, and I'm going to use my widow's might to help promote the content that I want to see, and to it's an exchange of energy, as we say in the yoga world. Money is just a form of energy, and it's a way to exchange energy. And that gratitude, that showing of gratitude, it's not greed to say, I need to live, and I by exchanging money or in whatever form we are I think that we are doing a service for humanity. So do I think everybody should make all their stuff available for free and say, hey, if you can pay what you can? I mean, I tend to like that kind of idea, but I've also learned the hard way that human beings generally feel like they're entitled um, to more than what you have sacrificed. And that goes for whether you're publishing a Udemy video series or you're publishing, a piece of music or anything like that. Um, and but I'm not here to judge you. You make up your own decisions. I'm seriously, I'm just sharing you my opinion on piracy, so that when we go into the beginner boost, you can feel good about your own decision. And I think if you ask yourself, well, what if? I think a lot of people probably who aren't from America are going to probably end up pirating some of the material that I recommend. And I have no problem with that. I'm not telling you to do that. But if they do it, I would hope that when and if they join the Western economy, we'll say, that they remember that that stuff that you quote unquote stole is what enabled you to be where you are now, and figure out whatever they ethically feel is the right way to give that back. It might not necessarily be get everybody else to buy the copy. It might be some other way, right? So that's what I want to put out there. We need to claw back the money that the 1% took from us. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that too. So, but the hard part about this anger against the 1% is that sort of, I've seen this anger before. I actually live in an apartment complex that's full of it, and without getting too philosophical, I was trying to keep it related to piracy. People justify piracy because they feel disenfranchised. They justify burglary. They justify vandalism. They justify, straight up shoplifting. I mean, brazen shoplifting. My wife was. This is still relevant because it's related to the whole is piracy stealing thing. My wife was a regional director of security for a corporation in this area, and I used to go around with her on all our trips while we were courting, and you would not believe the stories. People would go into old whoops, what am I supposed to say? I already did. Old Navy. They would go into Old Navy and they would load up basically a bag and they would walk right out the door. And the corporate policy, I almost shouldn't say this, the corporate policy is to let them go out the door. A lot of people don't know this, but the people who do know this, they know it very well. They know that the law says that most corporate policies with regard to shoplifting are you let them go out the door and then you call the cops. You do not attempt to stop a shoplifter from exiting because somebody will end up hurt or dead. And the policy of most stores and retail chains is no amount of shoplifting is ever worth the loss. And there are professional shoplifters who know this. They know it. They go in and they very brazenly, my wife has told me stories, they very brazenly walk out and say, you can't do anything. What are you going to do? And they like to deliberately goad them and they walk out the door with all kinds of money. And then somebody hears a story like that and they immediately throw the entire, lower income class under the bus saying, oh, see, all those poor people are all just shoplifting assholes. They don't even care. And they'll use one squatter story about how the police came to arrest the woman who changed the locks on her doors of a house that was being squatted on. That actually happened. So the reason I'm telling you these stories is because I don't want people to feel like, because it seems the sentiment kind of came out in the chat, I don't want people to feel like because late stage capitalism is failing and the 1% is getting richer and richer and the people who are honestly trying to make a decent living are suffering more and more is justification for you to pirate something. I don't agree with that. And you have to live with yourself. You have to decide what to do when you die. And I don't want to go to my grave thinking, oh yeah, I got mine, right? What can I get away with? And, I don't like the situation that's being controlled. I don't like what the 1% are doing, but I also don't feel like it justifies stealing usually from, in this particular case, you'd be stealing from, you're not stealing from the publisher, you're stealing directly from the person producing the content, whether it be a book or music or whatever. Yeah. So once you leave the door, security can arrest them because it's the law point. They're left with property. Yeah. Supermarkets don't care about hurting people. They care about insurances and lawsuit costs. Yep. Boomers got their house pretty cheap. They did. And you don't blame the boomers for the problems of the economy. They may come off as being clueless. There's actually a really good skit from SNL about that I will watch after this video is over, and I'll put a link to it. But it's, you can't blame it on a generation. You can't. It's just the way it is, and we can work to correct it. So if there's nothing more in this video, this is a bunch of things for you to consider with regard to, should I pay for this book or not? Should I pay for VMware or not? And I'm here to tell you that my position is that's up to you. You do you. Should I use an ad blocker or not while watching RWX Rob? Or should I pay for Turbo or subscribe? Think about that one for a second, right? Again, I have no opinion there. You can do your own thing. You can do your own thing. Do you have the money to pay for Turbo? Subscribe. Do you have the money to subscribe? I get people, but can I just ask one thing? I just ask one thing. Please don't complain about ads. If you have the money to buy Turbo or to subscribe, don't complain about ads in my chat, okay? I hate that I have to have ads, but that is a part of the situation, and those ads very directly pay for me. I pay $350 a month for my gear to have it work, and without that money, I couldn't do it. So, I'm not panhandling here. I'm just telling you, if you are getting benefit, at least consider, showing some level of gratitude to me or others. And that's all. Don't just think that you're entitled to everything for free. That is wrong thinking, and that will not serve you well in the long term in your life, in my opinion. That's all.